I do believe that the social credit score is going to be used to determine who gets food. I think that's ultimately where it's going to, is this. Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output. But very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time: cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David Dubine. So Hong Kong's a powder keg here, and we can talk about the fake trade war and all that stuff too.
Well, yeah, so I was really interested in this because we're so tied with China, and I know that China launders a lot of its money and does currency manipulation through the Hong Kong banks. But what happens to mega corporations like Walmart, things like that depend on almost all Chinese goods? Or what happens to our monetary system when China dumps all these derivatives and U.S. bonds and stuff that they hold?
China depends on us more than we depend on them because they need those factories running so there's not mass civil unrest in their country. As soon as all these factories close, there could be a political change in the country because there's not enough work for people. There won't be money for them. They'll also be struggling for food because if you know anything about China's food costs, it rose 46% so far just this year alone. Wow. Imagine if, let's say, 70% of their factories close because they dump all the bonds. Actually, it'd probably be higher, closer to 85, 90%. All Chinese manufacturing would cease. All outbound whatever manufactured in China would cease. I mean, there'd be no foreign buyers coming into China. So everything would completely lock up. So China would almost shoot its own leg, not foot, but leg and bottom torso if it did that move, because it would create its own civil unrest. That would be something that they hadn't seen in hundreds of years sweep through. I think everybody's so dependent on everybody else that to do that, I don't think it's workable or wise to do such a thing. But, and I'm going to throw a but out here, caveat, if they know that it's coming to the last year of stable food growth on the planet, perhaps they would let these flare-up points go so they could lock things down further with a police state. And then once locked down, it would be more control for a food delivery system at that point. Because at some year in the very near future, I would say 2021, 2022 is the last year we get very solid food growth. And we've already seen incredible losses. What if it happens next year? I think that's the end of stable food growing on the planet. And how would governments respond to that with angry people in every country indefinitely? And people's fighting for food too. This is where we get into, you're going to have to know how to grow your own food, store your own food, pack your own food, and guard your own food.
Yeah. So let's get into the what if right here. So say the governments, which I heard you kind of alluding to this, talking to David Knight about 9/11 and all of the laws, changes, and government functions that changed immediately after 9/11. We had the Patriot Act, the Patriot Act 2, the NDAA, the Freedom Act, they renamed it. And within that, hidden all in there was thereafter, your ability, for one, to, like you said, protect things, and two, to grow your own things. And if they did know, so we're in a what if. So I tend to believe this idea that the government has known about this portion of the cycle for the planet Earth for some time, and they've been preparing for it. And that's why they've set up police states everywhere. And like over here in the U.S., a lot of people aren't used to this idea, but in China, everything revolves around this social credit score system. And it's already built here in the United States. They just haven't forced it on you yet. But even with people like Trump they're buying into this idea that they could use a social credit score system. And I wonder if that's also tied into this police state where they have set it up to have complete control and an event they've known was going to happen. I mean, we got all these increased solar particles coming in. We know the weather's going to get weird, but it is possible we could look at some of, like you said, these older cycles. Could you elaborate on this what if about why the government's been doing particular things, setting up a scenario where they have control over food, agriculture, financial systems, just everything?
And also, I do believe that the social credit score is going to be used to determine who gets food. I think that's ultimately where it's going to, is this. And, that same article you had up there off of Drudge, I read that last night too. And, they're using these devices that they have in your own home that you were idiotic enough to buy your own spyware for your house. It talks about the Amazon or whatever, the Alexa and the other kind of stuff that's in your house that listen to you with the voice commands or whatever. That's what they're using right now to start this social credit system, is how you're behaving in your house. If you're drinking, if you're, screaming at your wife or kids, or, if you're talking under your breath, like let's say you watch a news article and you disagree with it and you say something under your breath, like, oh, never, something. They record that, and that comes into your psychological profile. So it's beyond social credit scoring now. It's taken it up a level from the Chinese credit score. It's now a mental health credit score based on just simple actions, which is even scarier. Now they can, mentally commit you because of something you said on Alexa in your house? That's taking it to the next level. China can just cut off your ability to buy airplane tickets. But bring it, leave it to America. I had a friend from Peru. We were going to go surfing. I lived in Maui for quite a few years. And a buddy of mine picked me up. He's from Peru. And we were, waiting at a stoplight. And somebody had a blower, landscape crew. And he starts laughing hysterically. And he smacks his leg. And he goes, "That's American style. Take a broom and put a motor on it."
Wow.
And the funny Peruvian guy, actually, he's a super classic guy. We used to surf a lot. And the same thing, America just won up China on the social credit score. Now it's a psychological profile score built in with what your allegiance to the state is. So China's just allegiance to the state. Now we're putting in a whole psychological aspect to it. So again, here's America, take a broom and put a motor on it. Same with this, the new psych score that you're going to get.
I say this on my channel all the time. I tell people there's nothing that you do that they don't see. There's not a keystroke you write, not an email you send, not a phone call, not a video chat, nothing. You can't go to the store, buy anything. You're using your chip or your swipe or your poke or whatever. They know what you've done. They know your habits. They know all of that. And why would they want to know all of that at the same time as feeding you bad information to where you're going to plan for a future that's most likely the opposite of what's actually going to happen?
Yeah, what do you think about that? For me, I'm always saying whatever they say, do the 180-degree opposite. I mean, do you agree or disagree? I'm curious on your thoughts because you're much more into that realm than I am. I have my own specific realm that I'm into with the grand solar minimum, but you're definitely further into that realm of governmental control by so many means and ways. So tell me about what you see in the future here moving, because you know about grand solar minimum too. So how do you see it on the control end?
In my opinion, that's kind of why I was asking you. It seems like, there's no coincidence about similar patterns. So I know that when these guys are claiming global warming, and I'm not super educated, I don't have PhDs or nothing, but then I look into it, and people like Al Gore and the IPCC or whatever it's called, I noticed something, and that they're not even using the scientific method, which they hammered over the head on me when I was in high school in like chemistry and biology, to use the scientific method for everything. And then I was introduced to ideas like thermodynamics, like where you use all of the information available to be able to make a data set. And whenever they do global warming, I know that they're not doing that. And then I see at the same time restrictions going all over the place and little laws, and then things like Agenda 2030 and Davos and Bilderberg. I actually went to Bilderberg. So I know that they know something is happening. I don't know what it is, and I don't claim to know what it is. But like you said, when they're telling me one thing and I can see that there's a flaw in their story, I tend to look the other way at things, and the grand solar minimum explains a lot of things out there that people don't understand why. The grand solar minimum and weather changing and the sun being more active, if they knew this was coming because they knew about the cycles themselves, obviously they have great scientists within government, so they know way more than we do, right? That's why I like the point that you were bringing up about how the police state has been set up in a way that, they're already prepared for food shortages and the zombie apocalypse, if you want to call it that.
And I have been looking more into this Agenda 2030. I think the grand solar minimum is going to wipe out more than half the world population. So the current paradigm is the way we try to frame Agenda 2030 is with the current population we have, and how are they going to get everything, the mechanization of that transition process? How are we going to squeeze all these people into the cities? How are they going to do all of this with all the people right now? Well, they won't. It's going to be a very reduced population. And then because of the lack of nutrients and a lack of mineral intake, and people are going to be very weak and they're going to be much sicker. So to be able to control that populace, and then if they're going to continue to feed bad foods, the mind is going to be weaker as well. So take a look back through history and see every time we get a grand solar minimum, we get plagues.
You saying that, and I'm looking at this picture.
Okay, there were so many of them. They had like 48, 50 pictures.
I look at this and I think, and this disaster happens over here in the Bahamas, right? And people are utterly unprepared. I'm sure that almost no one has food storage. Not to mention, just like you were saying, are people even well enough to deal with the earth when it starts to be, it's extreme because we're so used to living in comfort and imagination land is what I call it. And these people look sick, like not them particularly, but look at her. She needs a lot of help. So anybody like this in any real situation is going to be done. And this didn't take much. This was just one storm and civilization is over there.
And my personal feeling is, I was talking with somebody yesterday. I don't think they're ever going to rebuild the infrastructure here for tourism again, because this grand solar minimum, which is going to wipe out our economy, is going to happen faster than they're going to be able to rebuild. So unfortunately for the Bahamas, I think that's over, that whatever's left there will be left there, and that's it, that they will never rebuild and they will never have a tourism industry again, as the rest of the world stops spending and they're putting 2-3 times more into their food. Because, when we look back at 2008 and 9, it's going to be something, 50 or 100-fold more intense than what 2008 and 9 was. There's no coming back from it this time. It needs to be an entire financial reset. Bringing in crypto, bringing in a new financial system backed by gold, whatever it might be. And the UN wants to float around something backed by natural resources. So they literally want to take your forest and then back it in a blockchain and issue a currency or a new kind of coin against your forest. So when we come to a total 100% financial reset on the planet, tourism is the last thing people are going to be doing. So when you go to places like the Bahamas that are so reliant on tourism, they're done. I don't think they're coming back. It's a sad thing to say. I've been there a couple of times. I really like the Bahamas. The first time I ever went shipwreck diving was in the Bahamas. Love that place. Super fun, friendly people. The ocean is absolutely, Jacques Cousteau, beautiful down there with as many colors and corals and fish. And I like the place.
And it's just crazy that it's pretty much gone overnight. I mean, it's flattened. I was looking at some of the aerial helicopters and they've flown over it. And this is just one storm. Just like in Haiti, Haiti is still a disaster zone after the earthquake and hurricane that pummeled them. And from what I know about the grand solar minimum, we can expect that for the next decades. Increased volcanoes, more things in the atmosphere. Another thing I wanted you to kind of explain, because I think I get the concept. So there are a lot of debris up in the upper atmosphere at this point from some of these volcanoes that are going up at high altitudes. And you were mentioning like purple sunsets, but I just wanted to point out that if there is more cloud nucleation in the future and we have more volcanic events, sunlight itself will become a rare resource. And then what do people do then?
Well, there's been a few studies on the solar panel declines during these times. On every watt per square meter that strikes the planet's surface will decrease your solar panel output by a certain amount. There's already been a lot of studies on this, and they were talking during the grand solar minimum that solar panel output will decrease by 25%, 25, a quarter. So when you're looking at efficiency gains and people are trying to build out electrical production based on today's models, I'm sorry, that's not such a good thing, because if you're going to buy something or install something, if you could go over to the Grand Solar Minimum resources and just click on that tab there. So inside here, there's over 100 different resources you can come to of people with research sites that know much more than myself. I consolidated all of this. Every time I find something new, interesting, or innovative, I will put it in here. The changes in 2014 to 2016, and now this is a great place for anybody out there to start with the research. I put those 2 years there as the mark in time. So now all you have to do is follow the links and come back up to today and then compare what happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago. All right, then you can get a real good indication. You got to do some of your own research. I'm not going to walk you through and then, update it to 2019 and do your own research.
Right.
And it's all here for you. It's spelled out. It's an enormous amount of charts and data inside here, so you can go back and compare. And that's what you should do, is compare, like what's happening now compared to the 2 years that I set aside there. So you can get a benchmark comparison. We're going to have to bring everything indoor because these storms are getting more intense. Look at the hail size.
Yeah.
The wind, the rain. It's just unbelievable how much everything's amplifying. But we're nowhere near the heavy stuff yet. We're in the brisk wind before the typhoon arrives or the hurricane arrives. A little like poof.
And you weren't even really into this, right? You just kind of came across this idea and concept because you were trying to be free market and make some money.
That's true. I wanted to buy some coffee in Myanmar, and that nature said something else. Well, so did the government. But anyway, right. Nature. My whole thing is just bringing a little bit of awareness in the message I have the skill set to present out there that we're going to have to work together. You absolutely, unequivocally will have to grow your own food, and then you're going to have to learn how to store it and keep it for a longer term. So do you have the Mylar bags? Do you have the oxygen packs to put in there? Do you have the vacuum sealer? Do you have all these things? And again, you're going to have to come together with your community and start to talk to people who are of like mind, because when it goes down, 95% of the people are going to be unprepared for this. So how do you stay prepared to be able to help your own family? Because if people know in your neighborhood that you're stockpiled full of food, when it gets hungry enough within 3 or 4 days and their children are actually getting sick because they don't have food, they're going to come to your house. They're not going to be nice, that's for sure.
Yeah, they'll be willing to murder you over their children.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Not even.
Or even themselves. The hunger does that. Where do you go? Like, you only got two choices in scenarios like this. You're either going to stay put or you have a place to go. And you're not going to call somebody on the phone and get help. So, yeah.
Yeah. And are you able to take the skill set with you, too? So let's say you get upended out of your house and you have to go on the run for some reason. Are you able to take that in your mind, not a physical thing in your hand, and just reset up somewhere else?
I can. And what's funny, you were talking about all that tourism. I've been doing tourism, too. So, like, when I go places, I'm camping. And I'm finding ways to, not spend money, get free resources. So I've been on that trip my whole life. I think a lot of people don't understand that, too. There are people like me that have been on the strife since day one, and we're already ahead in the game. I mean, as far as figuring out stuff.
It's going to continue to be an never-ending learning effort for all of us, because as we go through all these changes, that's why I call my channel Adapt.
Yeah, adapt.
30, because every day from this point forward, we're going to need to adapt to changing economy, to changing food growing conditions, to changing government, to changing finance system and fiat, moving over to crypto, smart contracts for grain deliveries. I mean, all this stuff is going to be brand new for so much of our society. Very few people are going to be able to roll with the changes. Wasn't that an old REO Speedwagon song? Roll with the changes.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you for coming on, David, and I appreciate you giving me some time to talk about some of this stuff. I know that my audience, I joke around with them a lot, but I do try to talk about these serious topics, and mostly everybody on the channel is pretty familiar with the Grand Solar Minimum. But if you're not, you can go over to Adapt 2030 and then maybe, hold a half-decent conversation with one of these alarmist people. And I'm not trying to be alarmist saying that bad things may happen. I'm just saying that's the way things are. Deal with it and be prepared.
If I can get one last bit of info from you, what do you think about the police state evolution from this point forward? You're talking about more control. They're trying to get into our homes with Alexa to give us psychological profiling and the social credit score. Like, where do you see the whole mechanism of police control and like governmental control moving from here?
Actually, I think that the whole thing has been planned for a reset. And there are certain aspects of our reality that maybe need a reset. And the police state's one of them. Unfortunately, I know that the police state is just an apparatus that the elite use to control things. So I know that that can dissolve as fast as it came about. But it's the people that let the incrementalism get away with, you can't do this, you can't say that, you can't grow this. Like if you live in a city, per se. I lived in a place over there in Maryland in Prince George County next to DC, and there were rules about maintaining a flower bed and spraying poison on it, keeping it a certain length. And under no circumstances were you allowed to grow food on your lot. They would get mad. They would call the police. The groundskeeper people that deal with the city aspect will come and poison it and kill it, or you'll get fined. And it's like that everywhere. Like Oklahoma City, in the middle of Oklahoma and farm country, you can't grow tomatoes within the city limits.
And collecting your own rainwater in some places is illegal as well.
Yeah, like Oregon, they claim they own the sky and the water. I mean, what do you do with that? I don't know. But no, it's just going to keep getting worse. And people believe that they pick the right or the left, that things will get better. And from my experience and what I've been paying attention to all throughout history, it doesn't matter which side of the political aisle in the United States, one thing they always do is keep giving more money to the state. And the state is just to control every aspect of your life. And now they're replacing so much stuff with robots. The need to police people will come to an end because the need for people is coming to an end. And I actually think that the population plateau, the grand solar minimum, and the consolidation of world powers is no coincidentally all happening at the same time. And the only way to fight that is to be self-sufficient, independent, and understand you have your own rights that you were born with. And part of that is being able to eat.
Clean water as well. You know, if water filtration, if your faucet turns off this minute, how many of you are ready to go find water, purify it?
I bet not many people. I mean, I have a pack that has tools and chemicals and anything I need to get on the road. But once, like you said, once you're somewhere, you need to be able to set up again and start thinking about long-term existence.
Yeah, basic field filter, with some charcoal and some grass and small gravel, whatever you find out there. And then after that, okay, it's just filtered. Then what? You got to bring it to the next level so you can drink it. Just because you take the mud out of it and it looks clean, it ain't clean because there's still pathogens in there. And, so what are you going to drink? Yeah.
Several. I have like at least 4, and you have to update them because, once something happens, you're not ordering another water straw from Amazon. But that doesn't mean all of that will help you. Like you said, you have to be somewhere with long-term resources and a plan.
Medicine's going to run out too, so people will say, hey, I have a really big medical kit. Yeah, for how long is my question.
Well, yeah. And then, I thought about that too. On top of farming, people should really get into stockpiling silver for that exact reason. As far as I know, that's the only way to make massive amounts of antibiotic. You just need silver, water, and some form of electricity. And you can electrolysis your way to having some antibiotics and something to barter with.
Anyway. Colloidal silver, our best friend.
Yeah, right.
Everybody, please do some research and get yourselves prepared for these massive changes. Not on our doorstep. It's already here. It's occurring. You're just going to have to deal with it as it moves from this point.
That's right. The future is now.